I'm Elias Boss, 36 years old, a vintage luxury watch restorer with a fully paid downtown workshop I built from nothing. I started out folding watch parts in my parents' cramped basement at 18, working overnight shifts at an auto shop to fund tiny precision tools, turning down every party, trip, or hobby for 8 straight years just to build something stable I could call mine. My mom's broken marriage scarred me deep as a kid. I watched her bend over backward for my deadbeat dad for 20 years. She covered all bills, sacrificed every dream, and still got cheated on and discarded once he found someone younger. I swore to myself I'd never be that kind of partner. When I met Lila 8 years back, I locked every single personal one away to give her the soft, secure life she claimed she deserved. I gave up weekend watch collector meetups, canceled my annual vintage watch auction trips, stopped collecting rare pocket watches I'd chased since adolescence, and funneled nearly 70% of my workshop monthly profit straight into her growing beauty live stream business. I thought endless compromise would earn me equal care back. I was dead wrong. Lila ran a daily makeup and skincare live channel targeting young shoppers. She grew greedy fast once her follower count ticked past 100,000. She wanted bigger brand collabs, warehouse-sized inventory stacks, fancy filming gear, and a dedicated studio space, but refused to put a single cent of her own live revenue back into her brand. Every time she hit a cash shortage, she'd beg me for transfers, guilt me with how badly her audience expected luxury content. I always caved, until the day a corporate equipment supplier walked through my workshop front door, holding a signed collateral contract I never laid eyes on. Lila had secretly registered my entire inventory of Swiss watch lathes, diamond polishing machines, ultrasonic cleaning stations, and limited edition calibration rigs as loan collateral to borrow over $120,000 for bulk cosmetic stock. Every piece of machinery I'd spent a decade saving for, every irreplaceable precision tool that made my business profitable, was on the line if she missed a single monthly payment. I didn't yell, didn't throw a fit, didn't storm home to scream accusations. I spent 3 full nights compiling every signed collateral document, bank loan statement, live stream spending bank logs, and years of saved text chats where she'd lied about her debts and hidden borrowing plans. When the supplier returned to our scheduled formal meeting at my workshop, I laid every irrefutable piece of proof across my oak workbench and permanently cut off all financial access I'd ever given her. I never schemed to ruin her brand. I only pulled back the unlimited safety net she'd relied on to feed her reckless spending spree. Every bankruptcy notice, brand termination email, and debt lawsuit that landed on her doorstep afterward was a direct result of her own unethical choices, not any retaliation from me. This is every raw, unfiltered beat of the 8 years I wasted sacrificing myself for a partner who only saw my workshop and my savings as an endless loan pool, told entirely from my perspective with no extra scenery descriptions, only internal thought and direct dialogue. Hashtag chapter 1 8 years of one-sided sacrifice, rooted in my mom's failed marriage trauma. I still remember sitting on our old linoleum kitchen floor at 12, watching my mom crumple her college art scholarship letter so she could pick up a second waitress shift to cover my dad's bar tabs and gambling debts. She'd wanted to study oil painting, move to a coastal city, and open a small gallery, but my dad's selfish whims erased every plan she'd ever drafted. She'd cry quietly late at night while folding laundry, and I'd promise her I'd never let any person drain all my ambition and finances the way he drained hers. That childhood vow stuck with me hard into adulthood. I threw myself into watch restoration full-time after high school, skipping every social gathering to master micro-polishing and gear calibration. Vintage timepieces fascinated me. Every scratch, every worn gear held a quiet history that required patience and steady hands to repair, a contrast to the chaotic emotional mess I'd grown up around. By 28, I'd scraped together enough down payment to purchase the 2-story downtown workshop that now belonged solely to me. 0 joint ownership clauses, 0 parental loans, or family co-signers. The upper floor held my small personal apartment. The ground level housed all my $1 million industrial watch equipment, locked behind heavy steel security doors with biometric access only registered to my fingerprints. I met Lila at a local beauty supply pop-up market the same year I finalized the workshop mortgage payoff. She'd set up a tiny folding table selling cheap lip glosses, and she'd smiled wide when I stopped to browse her display, telling me she dreamed of running a massive national beauty live stream brand one day. Back then, I thought her drive matched my own work ethic. I didn't see the red flags buried beneath her excited chatter. She mentioned expecting a partner to fully fund her startup costs, admitted she'd never stuck to a personal budget in her life, and laughed off the idea of splitting shared household expenses 50-50. I brushed all those warnings aside, my childhood trauma pushing me to overcompensate to be the reliable, thoughtful partner my mom never got to have. Our first year dating set the permanent, unequal routine that defined our 8 years together. Lila's live channel was tiny, only a few hundred viewers, but she already demanded I cover all filming ring lights, backdrop fabric, branded display racks, and shipping boxes for her orders. Every weekend, I'd finish 12-hour restoration shifts at the workshop, then drive across town to pack her customer beauty parcels until midnight. No extra compensation. No word of thanks beyond a quick peck on the cheek before she passed out scrolling social media. I gave up my quarterly vintage watch collector meetups to help her run weekend pop-up booths, abandoned my plan to import a rare 1950s pocket watch collection from Switzerland to sink cash into her expanding cosmetic inventory, and stopped saving for a small personal gallery wall in my apartment so I could pay for her upgraded live streaming camera setup. When we moved in together in the second year, all rent, utility bills, grocery receipts, and building maintenance fees came out of my workshop business account alone. Lila deposited her live stream brand revenue into a separate private checking account she never shared login information for, claiming the money was reserved for future brand expansion that never actually materialized. Anytime I brought up splitting household costs evenly, she'd launch into a rehearsed guilt monologue. My streams are building our future name recognition, Elias. If I blow up big enough, we won't need to rely on watch repair income anymore. Can't you see this is an investment for both of us? I'd swallow my frustration every single time, flashbacks to my mom's discarded scholarship letter looping in my head, and transfer whatever extra cash she begged for that week without pushing back. My college best friend Jude visited the workshop once every 2 months, and he'd watched me slowly erase every personal hobby over the years, repeatedly warning I was trapping myself in the exact one-sided dynamic I'd sworn to avoid as a kid. "You built this entire shop with blood and overtime," he'd say, leaning against my polishing station. "She's taking every resource you generate and never giving anything back in return. Draw a line before you've got nothing left of your own dreams." I dismiss his advice every time, clinging to the faint hope Lila would mature and start matching my level of sacrifice once her channel gained traction. Clara, a 62-year veteran Swiss watch restorer who mentored me when I first opened the workshop, echoed Jude's concern constantly during our weekly equipment maintenance consultations. She'd run her own female-owned restoration studio for 40 years, watched dozens of young creators get drained by selfish partners, and pointed out every warning sign I'd chosen to ignore. "A person who refuses to split basic living costs and constantly borrows large sums without repayment plans doesn't value your labor," she'd tell me, wiping diamond polish off a gear wheel. "Your precision machinery isn't disposable collateral for her impulsive retail gambles. Don't let her sign anything linked to your workshop assets." I nod and agree with her logic, then cave the second Lila texted me a desperate cash request that night. The slow, years-long financial exploitation ramped up drastically once Lila's follower count hit 120,000 3 years before the equipment collateral disaster hit. Major mid-tier beauty brands reached out with small collaboration offers, sending free sample palettes and serums to feature on her streams, and she immediately began overestimating how much brand funding she'd secure long-term. She'd send me screenshots of massive warehouse inventory orders every other week, begging for 5-figure transfers to cover bulk wholesale pricing, promising the product resale profit would fully reimburse me within 30 days. Not a single one of those repayment promises ever held true. Every large semi-cent vanished into unsold foundation tubes, expired moisturizer bottles, and overpriced live stream backdrop decor she'd impulse purchase, without market research. I compiled a digital spreadsheet every time I transferred money to her, logging exact dollar amounts, transaction dates, and the excuse she'd used to beg for the funds, saving every screenshot of her pleading texts in an encrypted cloud folder I only access late at night after she'd fallen asleep. By the 8th year of our relationship, the total one-sided financial support I poured into her live stream brand stacked up to well over $210,000, all pulled straight from my workshop's operating and personal savings accounts. Lila grew bolder with her reckless spending habits the more I surrendered to her demands. She leased a luxury SUV under my secondary credit line without asking permission, booked 3 out-of-state beauty influencer conferences on my business travel card, and started hiding loan application paperwork in the back of her closet whenever I stopped by her filming spare room. I caught glimpses of blank collateral forms a handful of times over the final 6 months leading up to the supplier's visit, but every time I questioned what the documents were for, she'd laugh it off as minor brand credit line paperwork with zero connection to my workshop equipment. I never pushed hard enough to dig deeper, still clinging to that childish urge to be the understanding partner my mom never had. The day everything shattered arrived on a regular Wednesday morning, midway through a complicated Patek Philippe vintage restoration job I'd spent 10 straight hours calibrating the gears for. The front workshop security bell chimed, and I glanced up to see Mr. Hale, senior account manager for the industrial precision machinery brand I'd purchased all my watch equipment from, standing in the entryway holding a thick sealed manila folder in his hands. He didn't exchange casual small talk like our usual monthly maintenance visits. His expression was tight, serious, and he set the stack of legal paperwork flat on my primary oak workbench the second I gestured for him to sit across from me. "Elias, I'm here regarding a secured equipment loan application filed under your workshop's registered business address 2 weeks prior," he said, sliding the top collateral contract page toward me to read. The applicant listed every piece of industrial watch restoration machinery you own as full loan collateral for a $124,000 retail inventory credit line. The signature on the witness block matches your partner Lila's legal name, and the document states you granted full asset usage permission to secure the debt. I picked up the paper slowly, my fingers brushing the printed list of every machine I'd spent a decade investing in, 3 Swiss CNC watch lathes, industrial ultrasonic cleaning tanks, diamond grinding rigs, temperature-controlled calibration ovens, limited edition polishing stations custom imported from Geneva, all valued collectively at over 1.1 million USD. Buried at the bottom of the signature section was a forged digital copy of my workshop business authorization form Lila had edited to include collateral consent language I'd never written or signed. My chest tightened, every 8 years of uncompensated sacrifice crashing down all at once, but my voice stayed level when I turned to Mr. Hale to respond. I never signed any collateral consent paperwork, never granted permission to pledge my workshop equipment for outside retail loans, and was never informed this application existed at all. Can I receive full digital and physical copies of every document linked to this debt for formal review? Mr. Hale nodded, pulling a full printed packet of every loan submission file, bank statement attachment, and chat screenshot Lila had submitted to the brand's lending division as supporting proof. Our compliance team flagged inconsistencies in the business authorization clause last week, which is why I'm delivering these records in person before the loan disbursement date arrives next Monday. If the collateral owner revokes all asset permission prior to funding, we will fully void the loan contract with no penalties tied to your workshop. I thanked him for the advance heads up, scheduled a formal in-person conference for 3 days later at my workshop so we could review all evidence together, and watched him walk back out to his company vehicle without raising my voice or letting frustration spill out into an outburst. The second the workshop front door locked behind him, I pulled out my laptop and dedicated the next 72 hours to compiling every piece of irrefutable proof I could gather to lay out in front of Mr. Hale during our scheduled meeting. I pulled every monthly bank transfer log showing the hundreds of thousands I voluntarily sent Lila over 8 years, printed every screenshot of her texts promising repayment that never arrived, downloaded full digital copies of the forged authorization form to highlight the edited text discrepancies, and pulled 6 months of her personal bank statements she'd accidentally left logged into my home desktop computer. Statements packed with luxury boutique charges, influencer dinner tabs, and bulk cosmetic warehouse orders with zero matching brand revenue deposits to offset the spending. I also pulled every recorded late-night conversation I'd captured on my workshop security audio mics, small snippets where Lila ranted to her live stream assistant about hiding loan paperwork from me and planning to use my machinery as collateral for inventory debt. I sorted every document into labeled physical binders separated by category: 8 years of unilateral financial transfers, forged business consent paperwork, private bank spending records, audio transcript printouts, and hundreds of pleading text chat logs detailing her endless cash requests. I texted Jude and Clara separately to fill them in on the full situation, explaining the collateral loan scheme Lila had hidden from me, and both offered to attend the formal meeting as neutral character witnesses if I needed backup support. I declined their company for the conference with Mr. Hale, resolving to handle the evidence presentation alone without emotional allies tipping the conversation into unnecessary drama. That evening when Lila arrived home from her live stream filming shift, I sat her down on my apartment couch without showing her any of the compiled evidence yet, simply asking her to explain the secured equipment loan Mr. Hale had notified me about that morning. Her first reaction was instant deflection, eyes darting away from my gaze as she waved a dismissive hand through the air. It's just a small brand credit line to bulk order more foundation palettes for my streams. Elias, the loan team overcomplicated the paperwork with extra asset language. Nothing to worry about at all. The paperwork lists every single industrial watch machine in my workshop as 100% collateral against a $124,000 debt. I replied evenly. And the business authorization form they submitted has edited text pretending I agreed to pledge all my equipment. Why did you forge that document without telling me a single word? Her tone shifted from casual brush-off to sharp defensive irritation in 2 seconds flat. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just temporary collateral until my brand hits bigger collabs. I'll pay the loan off within 2 months max once holiday inventory sales roll in. For 8 straight years, you've promised full reimbursement on every large transfer I sent you, and not one single repayment has ever hit my bank account, I said, pulling up the spreadsheet log on my laptop screen and sliding it across the couch for her to scan the running total of $210,000 in unpaid advances. What makes this massive loan any different from every other unfulfilled repayment promise you've made? Lila stood up abruptly from the couch, crossing her arms tight across her chest and launching into her standard guilt-driven monologue, the exact script she'd repeated hundreds of times over our relationship. I'm building a viable career for both of us. If you keep shutting down every opportunity to scale my brand, we'll never escape small-town watch repair income. You're being selfish and short-sighted for fixating on a few metal machines when my live stream could make us millionaires down the line. I didn't engage with her emotional manipulation this time, closing the laptop and standing to my feet to end the conversation early. I've scheduled a formal compliance meeting with the equipment supplier 3 days from now. I'll be presenting all loan documents, your spending records, and 8 years of transfer proof to revoke every collateral permission you forged. Moving forward, I am permanently cutting off all financial support of any kind for your live stream business. No more cash transfers, no use of my credit lines, no access to my workshop space for filming or storage, and full revocation of any equipment usage rights you've taken without written consent. She stared at me in stunned silence for a minute, fully convinced I'd caved the way I always had after a short argument, then scoffed and grabbed her filming bag off the counter to storm out to her spare streaming room for the night without another word. Over those next 3 days before the supplier meeting, Lila sent over 40 separate text messages alternating between tearful apologies and angry accusations of selfishness, cycling through every guilt tactic she'd mastered over 8 years. She brought up all the meals I'd supposedly eaten at her apartment in our early dating days, referenced the few small gifts she'd bought me over the years, and claimed I was throwing away our shared future over trivial workshop machinery. I read every message, once then muted her contact entirely, refusing to type a single reply or entertain her emotional blackmail tactics while I finalized my printed evidence binders for the scheduled conference. The morning of the meeting with Mr. Hale arrived, and I unlocked the workshop front door early to spread every categorized stack of documents across my oak workbench in neat, easy-to-follow sections before he pulled into the street parking lot out front. He stepped inside the workshop at exactly 10 a.m., and I gestured for him to sit across from the mass of printed records laid out between us, no preamble or small talk to delay the full evidence walkthrough. I started with the forged business authorization form first, pointing out the obvious font and text edit discrepancies between the original workshop paperwork I kept on file and the altered copy Lila had submitted to the lending department. This signature block edition was digitally edited weeks after the base document was drafted, I explained, sliding a side-by-side comparison printout toward him. I never reviewed, signed, or granted written consent to use my $1,000,000 restoration machinery as collateral for any retail inventory loan, and I only learned this application existed when you delivered the notice 3 days prior. Mr. Hale scanned the dual document comparison closely, marking a small sticky note on the edited text section for his compliance team's official file. Next, I pulled out the 8 years of bank transfer logs, laying out each year's cumulative dollar total and highlighting the consistent pattern of 5-figure cash requests Lila submitted every 6 to 8 weeks with 0 matching repayment deposits returning to my accounts. Every single one of these transfers was sent at her verbal or text request to fund bulk cosmetic inventory, filming equipment, and influencer travel costs, I said, tapping the running total line printed bold at the bottom of the final spreadsheet page. Not a single promised reimbursement has ever cleared my bank over 8 years of consistent lending. I moved onto the stack of her personal private bank statements after that, pointing out the endless luxury retail, fine dining, and influencer event charges with 0 brand partnership revenue deposits to balance out her reckless spending habits. She's operating this live stream brand at a permanent monthly deficit, relying entirely on my workshop income to cover every expense instead of reinvesting her own channel profits back into inventory the way she claimed she would. The final section of evidence I presented contained printed transcripts of the audio security recordings captured inside my workshop, snippets of Lila talking to her live stream assistant about hiding loan paperwork and intentionally forging my asset consent forms to secure large inventory debt without my knowledge. Mr. Hale read through every transcribed line slowly, his professional neutral expression hardening the longer he processed the full scope of unapproved financial manipulation. Our lending division's compliance rules state any collateral application submitted with forged business authorization is immediately voidable at the asset owner's written request, he said once he finished reviewing all 4 binder sections. I can draft the formal asset revocation paperwork on-site today to fully cancel the $124,000 loan before disbursement next Monday, eliminating all risk to your workshop machinery permanently. I nodded and asked him to print 2 signed copies of the revocation document from my personal records, 1 physical hard copy, and 1 digital PDF sent to my encrypted cloud storage address. Once we finished signing all official supplier paperwork to void the collateral loan, Mr. Hale closed his folder and looked across the table at me directly. I want to add an unofficial note for your reference. We've seen dozens of these partner collateral fraud cases over my 12 years in this role. 9 out of 10 applicants who forge asset consent papers carry a consistent pattern of unplanned, unprofitable retail overspending that collapses the second their partner cuts off unlimited financial backing. I thanked him for his transparency and the advance warning he delivered 3 days prior, walking him out to his company vehicle once all official documentation was fully filed and copied from my archives. As I locked the workshop front door behind his departing car, I pulled my phone out of my pocket and sent 1 single unemotional text to Lila's number, the only message I typed to her since muting her flood of guilt-tripping messages days earlier. The equipment supplier has fully voided your secured inventory loan via formal asset revocation paperwork I filed this morning. Effective immediately, all access to my workshop, credit lines, business accounts, and machinery storage spaces is permanently revoked. No further cash transfers, equipment usage, or workspace privileges will be extended to you for any live stream brand costs moving forward. I hit send and powered my cell phone off entirely for the rest of the workday, refocusing my attention back on the vintage Patek Philippe gear calibration project I'd paused 3 days prior amid all the loan paperwork chaos. When I arrived back upstairs to my apartment after closing the workshop that evening, Lila was sitting cross-legged on my living room floor surrounded by dozens of unopened cosmetic shipping boxes, her phone screen lit up with dozens of unread brand lender emails. She looked up the second I stepped through the front doorway, her face twisting into a furious, hurt expression the moment she spotted the empty manila supplier folder tucked under my arm. You actually went through with revoking the loan? She snapped, jumping to her feet and stepping directly in front of me to block my path toward the kitchen. You just destroyed my shot at hitting a 250,000 follower milestone this holiday season over a bunch of metal watch machines you don't even need half the time. Those machines built every dollar of income I've ever earned to support your 8 years of unprofitable live stream spending, I replied, stepping carefully around her to set the supplier paperwork folder on the dining table. You forged my legal consent documents to pledge them for massive debt without a single word of advance notice, and you've never once followed through on any repayment promise you made to me over all these years. I'm no longer obligated to absorb every reckless financial choice you make for your brand. Lila's voice cracked into a sharp, tearful yell as she threw her hands up in the air, every carefully curated calm influencer persona vanishing entirely in that moment. This relationship is supposed to be a team dynamic. How can you stab me in the back like this right when my brand is finally on the verge of blowing up big? A team splits costs evenly, communicates major financial plans ahead of time, and honors repayment agreements when one party lends large sums of money, I said flat. This has never been a two-way partnership. For 8 years, I covered 100% of every household and business expense you generated while you hoarded your separate live stream revenue and hid loan paperwork to take on massive debt behind my back. The team dynamic only existed on my side of the equation. She tried to shift back into soft, manipulative, tearful pleading after her angry outburst faded, stepping closer to me with watery eyes and reaching out to grab my wrist. Can't we compromise just a little bit? I'll scale back inventory orders drastically if you reverse the loan revocation paperwork. I swear I'll budget properly from this point forward. I pulled my arm away from her grip gently but firmly, shaking my head to signal there was zero room for negotiation on the boundaries I'd set that day. All financial and workshop access privileges are permanently terminated. There's no compromise to discuss here. If you need inventory funding moving forward, you'll have to secure loans under your own legal name using your own separate brand revenue without tying my workshop assets into any debt contracts. Lila's temper flared again after I refused to entertain her compromise request, grabbing her large filming rolling suitcase off the apartment closet rack and yanking the zipper open to start shoving her makeup palettes, ring lights, and streaming laptops inside at breakneck speed. If you're going to act this cold and uncooperative toward the person you claim you love, I don't have any reason to stay living in this apartment with you anymore, she huffed, tossing cosmetic bottles haphazardly into the suitcase compartments without care for the expensive glass packaging. I leaned against a dining table and watched her pack all her live stream equipment without trying to stop her or beg her to stay, the 8 years of repressed emotional exhaustion finally lifting off my shoulders now that I'd drawn uncrossable financial lines. The upstairs apartment is attached to my fully paid workshop property, registered solely under my legal name with no joint lease clauses, I told her as she zipped the suitcase shut and grabbed her car keys off the counter. You have 48 hours to remove all personal belongings from this spare streaming room and the apartment guest closet entirely. After that window elapses, any remaining items will be donated to local beauty supply charity shops with no further contact notifications sent to you. She shot one final bitter glare in my direction before slamming the apartment front door hard enough to rattle the window frames in the hallway, her suitcase, wheels clattering loud down the concrete stairwell leading to the street parking lot outside the workshop building. Once the echo of her car engine faded into the distance, I walked over to the window and stared out at the empty street for a long, quiet minute, no anger swirling in my chest, only pure, unburdened relief I hadn't felt since I was 18 starting out in my basement watch repair space all those years prior. I pulled out my cell phone and powered it back on, shooting a quick short text to Jude and Clara separately to fill them in that the supplier loan had been fully voided and Lila had chosen to move out effective immediately. I didn't linger on replaying every argument or every wasted dollar I'd poured into her brand over 8 years. I turned back to my half-finished vintage watch calibration project sitting on the workshop bench downstairs, ready to refocus all my spare time and disposable income back onto my own long-abandoned personal hobbies I'd sacrificed to cater to her endless demands. Over the next 48-hour move-out window I'd given her, Lila sent dozens more alternating angry and desperate text messages, cycling through every guilt tactic she'd perfected over our years together. She claimed I'd ruined her entire career trajectory, accused me of prioritizing metal machinery over our shared love, and begged me to reverse the asset revocation paperwork one last time with promises of strict monthly budgeting she'd never stick to in the first place. I read each message, once then archived them all in a separate cloud folder without typing a single reply, holding firm to the permanent financial cutoff I'd enacted at the supplier meeting. When the 48-hour deadline hit, I walked upstairs to the spare streaming room and found only a handful of cheap plastic makeup organizers and expired skincare sample packets left scattered across the desk surface, all high-value filming gear and bulk inventory boxes already loaded into her vehicle during a late-night move-out trip I hadn't witnessed. I boxed the leftover, worthless cosmetic trash and dropped it off at a neighborhood charity donation bin the following morning, fully erasing every trace of her live stream operation from my workshop and apartment space permanently. What unfolded in the months after Lila moved out was a fully self-inflicted downward spiral of her own reckless financial choices, every negative consequence a direct result of her 8 years of unplanned overspending and forged collateral loan scheme, no retaliation or sabotage on my part to speed along her collapse. I never reached out to brand representatives, loan lenders, or her live stream audience to speak negatively about her brand. Every industry fallout happened entirely from her own unethical business decisions catching up with her without any interference from me. First, every major mid-tier beauty brand that had previously sent free collab samples reached out to terminate all ongoing partnership contracts within 6 weeks of the voided collateral loan news circulating through retail lending industry networks. Brand compliance teams caught wind of her history of submitting forged asset paperwork to secure inventory debt, and every corporate marketing division cut all future filming feature opportunities with her channel overnight. Without consistent sponsored product content to draw new viewers to her live streams, her follower count plummeted from 120,000 down to under 17,000 in only 2 months flat. Her daily live viewership numbers crashed so drastically, she could no longer qualify for platform ad revenue bonuses that had made up a small portion of her brand's minimal monthly income stream. Next, the multiple smaller personal credit lines she'd opened over the years to fund cosmetic inventory orders all hit consecutive overdue payment statuses, without new brand collab cash flow to cover minimum monthly installments. Loan agencies began flooding her cell phone and temporary rental apartment with non-stop collection calls, sending formal late payment notices and pending credit damage warnings to her new residential address she'd rented after moving out of my workshop apartment. She'd signed a small studio rental lease in a distant suburban strip mall to continue filming live streams, but the rental deposit and monthly utility costs paired with mounting credit debt left her with barely enough income to cover basic grocery and gas expenses each week. Her massive stockpile of unsold foundation tubes, moisturizer sets, and unopened lip gloss palettes sat stacked floor to ceiling inside the tiny strip mall studio space with no brand partnerships or large audience base to move the excess inventory out for resale profit. Every week, she lost more money paying storage fees for thousands of dollars worth of expired cosmetic stock she'd impulsively ordered on credit with no viable customer base to purchase the goods from her. 3 months post our split, a cluster of 3 separate consumer lending companies filed formal small claims lawsuits against Lila in local county court over multiple months of unpaid credit line minimums. Court summonses were delivered to her strip mall studio front door, demanding repayment of over $40,000 in combined overdue retail debt within a 30-day court-ordered deadline. She had no available savings or brand revenue surplus to settle the outstanding balances, and her credit score dropped into subprime territory so severely she could no longer qualify for any rental housing applications, vehicle loans, or retail store credit cards anywhere in the local area. She reached out to me via a new unlisted burner phone number she'd purchased 6 weeks after moving out, sending a lengthy tearful text detailing all her collapsed brand partnerships, piled up debt lawsuits, and eviction threats from her strip mall studio landlord. The message begged me to reconsider reversing the equipment loan revocation paperwork and send large cash transfers to help her settle court-ordered debt repayments, promising she'd finally stick to a strict zero overspending budget if I resumed funding her inventory costs. I read the full paragraph of pleading text one time, then blocked the burner number permanently without drafting a single reply back to her. A month after the lawsuit summonses arrived at her studio, she showed up unannounced at my workshop front door during my regular midday equipment maintenance hours, fully expecting me to cave and offer financial assistance the second she broke down crying in front of me. I unlocked the steel security door only wide enough to stand in the entryway, not inviting her inside past the front threshold where all my restored watch machinery sat lined along the workbenches. Her eyes were puffy red from non-stop crying, her clothing wrinkled and unkempt compared to the polished influencer outfits she'd worn every day while living off my workshop income, and she clutched a crumpled stack of court debt papers in one shaking hand. "I'm begging you to reconsider cutting me off entirely," she choked out the second I made eye contact with her, holding the lawsuit paperwork up toward me to wave back and forth. "All my brand deals got canceled. Every lender is suing me. My studio landlord is threatening to evict me by the end of the month. If you just undo the loan revocation, I could order new profitable inventory and pay all these debts off fast." I folded my arms across my chest and stared at the stack of court documents in her grasp without reaching out to take them from her. Every single debt and collapsed brand partnership stems from financial choices you made entirely on your own over 8 years. I told her evenly, no harsh inflection or mocking tone layered into my words. You forged my asset consent forms to take on massive inventory loans without telling me, overstocked thousands of dollars of cosmetic goods with no sustainable customer base, and burned every brand collaboration bridge by submitting falsified collateral paperwork to lending divisions. None of these consequences are my fault, and I have zero obligation to inject more of my workshop earnings into a brand you ran recklessly for years while hiding debt from me. She switched back into angry accusation mode once she realized I wouldn't soften my boundaries, tossing the court papers down onto my workshop entry floor with a loud crumpling noise. You're choosing cold metal watch machines over the life we could have built together. All I needed was one temporary loan reversal to fix everything, and you refused to give me even a tiny second chance. I gave you 8 full years of unlimited second chances with every cash transfer I sent you for your brand. I countered. Every single time you promised repayment and stricter budgeting, you broke that word the second new bulk inventory caught your eye. I'm not wasting another dollar or piece of my workshop equipment to bail you out of self-inflicted financial ruin this time around. She stood on the concrete entry mat arguing with me for 20 more minutes, cycling between sobbing pleas and bitter insults about my supposedly boring, small-scale watch repair career, before finally realizing I wouldn't shift my stance on permanent financial cutoff, no matter how much she cried or yelled. She grabbed her crumpled court papers back off the floor and stormed out to her beat-up rental sedan parked on the street, peeling away from the curb at high speed without glancing back toward the workshop windows once she merged onto the main road. I bent down to pick up the discarded debt summons stack once her car vanished around the city block, tossing the unneeded paperwork straight into my office paper recycling bin without another thought about her mounting legal troubles. Over the following year, I poured all the spare cash and free time I previously wasted funding Lila's and profitable live stream brand back into my own long-abandoned personal hobbies and workshop expansion projects. I imported that rare 1950s pocket watch collection from Switzerland I'd canceled purchasing 8 years prior to cover her first bulk cosmetic order, built a dedicated vintage watch display wall in my upstairs apartment lined with restored antique timepieces I collected on weekends, and resumed attending my quarterly collector meetups with Jude every 3 months without guilt or rushed packing shifts for Lila's beauty parcels cutting into my free time. Clara continued stopping by weekly for equipment maintenance consultations, and she constantly commented on how much lighter and more focused I appeared after cutting off 8 years of one-sided financial sacrifice. I hired 2 part-time junior watch restoration apprentices to handle basic polishing and gear cleaning tasks at the workshop, expanding my client roster to include international luxury watch collectors shipping vintage pieces cross-country for custom repair work. My workshop annual profit margins climbed drastically without hundreds of thousands of dollars draining out each month to fund Lila's impulsive cosmetic inventory sprees, and I set up a dedicated personal travel savings fund to book annual overseas vintage watch auctions across Europe every spring. I met a soft-spoken graphic designer named Alara at a collector's conference 6 months after Lila's studio eviction, someone who ran her own small independent branding studio and split all shared costs 50-50 by default from our very first coffee date together. She never asked me to cover her business expenses, never borrowed large sums of cash with empty repayment promises, and celebrated every workshop expansion when alongside me without demanding I sacrifice my personal hobby time to cater to her career goals. We took slow, intentional trips to Swiss watch manufacturing towns every autumn, browsing antique horology shops and touring vintage gear factories together, a peaceful, balanced life I'd never once imagined possible during those 8 years of constant guilt tripping and one-sided sacrifice with Lila. I never received another text, call, or unannounced workshop visit from Lila after that day she showed up begging for loan reversal and cash bailouts. Jude tracked minor local gossip a handful of months later and filled me in on her latest developments, though I never sought out updates about her collapsed brand and mounting debt lawsuits. She'd been fully evicted from the strip mall filming studio after missing 3 consecutive months of rental payments, forced to move back in with her parents in a cramped suburban basement room while working minimum wage retail shifts at a local drugstore to chip away at court-ordered credit debt repayments. All of her unsold cosmetic inventory had to be donated to charity to clear out the studio rental space before the landlord locked the doors permanently, and every beauty brand that previously collaborated with her issued public social media statements cutting all ties over her forged collateral loan paperwork scandal. I didn't feel a single ounce of vindictive joy hearing about her ruined brand and crippling debt load. I'd never set out to sabotage her live stream career or orchestrate her financial collapse. All of her hardships stemmed directly from choices she'd made fully on her own, from hiding massive inventory debt to forging my legal asset consent documents to overstocking thousands of unmarketable cosmetic goods with zero sustainable revenue plan. My only action throughout the entire 8 years of exploitation and final fallout had been drawing clear financial boundaries and revoking unauthorized equipment collateral permissions once I uncovered her fraud scheme. I'd simply stopped volunteering my workshop income and machinery to act as her permanent safety net for reckless retail spending, and the fragile, debt-ridden brand she built entirely off my resources crumbled the second that safety net vanished. I sit in my workshop late most evenings now, polishing vintage watch gears on my unshared, fully owned equipment lined along the oak bench, glancing up at the wall of antique pocket watches I finally got to collect for myself after 8 years of sacrifice. I no longer carry that heavy childhood weight of trying to fix every selfish partner's financial mess the way my mom spent 20 years sacrificing everything for my deadbeat dad. I learned a permanent, unshakable truth over those 8 draining years of one-sided compromise. Love never requires you to erase every personal dream, drain your life savings, or risk your life's business assets to prop up a partner's unplanned, self-serving career gambles. Any person who only values you for the money and resources you can hand over will discard you the second you close the unlimited supply line of your labor and capital. Setting firm financial boundaries isn't cruelty, it's necessary self-preservation. I don't waste hours ruminating on every wasted dollar or every broken promise Elle handed me over our relationship anymore. My workshop, my antique watch collection, my balanced reciprocal partnership with Alera, and my quiet, unburdened daily peace are all the reward I needed for finally choosing to prioritize my own well-being over endless one-sided sacrifice for someone who never appreciated a single thing I built from scratch. I don't need to watch her struggle to feel satisfied with my life. All the fulfillment comes from finally living for myself, after 8 long years of only living to fund another person's fleeting, unprofitable dreams at the cost of every single one of my own.